I never thought the sound of a buzzing phone could make my chest tighten like this. It's 7:03 p.m. on a Wednesday, and I'm sitting by the window of my downtown Chicago apartment. The city lights shimmer on the glass of my wine. Half-finished reports scattered across the marble coffee table. My silk blouse still clings to me from the day, and yet the only thing I can feel is the vibration against the wood. The name flashing on my screen makes my stomach twist. Dad. 3 letters that once meant safety. And later came to mean betrayal. For years, I've kept my distance. Not hate, not exactly, just distance. The kind of silence you build like armor because going back means reopening wounds you've trained yourself to hide under layers of success, lipstick, and perfectly ironed blouses. I let the phone buzz again, and again. My reflection in the window stares back, polished hair, clear skin, poised. The woman everyone thinks has it all together. The woman no one realizes still carries the memory of the day her father used her wedding as a stage for his own spotlight. It's almost funny, in a bitter kind of way, that the moment meant to be the happiest of my life became the one I've spent years trying not to replay at night. The one sentence I'll never forget. Emily, you should be happy for me too. And now, he wants to talk. I can still smell the roses from that day. White roses everywhere. They were tucked into the pews, lining the aisle, wrapped into my bouquet that trembled just a little in my hands. I was 26, a bundle of nerves and hope, walking toward Michael, the man I thought I'd spend forever with. The room was filled with everyone I loved, or at least everyone who was supposed to love me. My bridesmaids whispered encouragement. My veil caught the light just right, and I remember thinking, this is my moment, finally mine. And then it wasn't. We were barely past the vows when I noticed Dad fidgeting in his seat. He'd brought his girlfriend, Linda, a woman I'd only met twice. She sat in bright red. And my wedding. I thought nothing of it at first. Maybe nerves, maybe excitement. But then, right after Michael kissed me, right after the applause swelled and I felt my chest expand with relief and joy, Dad stood up. Emily, he said loudly, tapping his glass, I have something to share, too. At first I thought it was a toast, a sweet fatherly moment. I held my breath, waiting for words about how proud he was, about how much he loved me. Instead, he turned to Linda, dropped down on one knee, pulled out a velvet box. Gasps echoed through the hall. My mother froze, my bridesmaid's smiles stiffened, Michael's hand tightened around mine. And me? I stood there, bouquet trembling, throat closing, heart cracking in real time. Linda, Dad beamed, will you marry me? The guests erupted. Claps, cheers, some confused laughter. Cameras even turned. For a split second, my own photographer's lens left me and found them. I forced a smile. My wedding day, the one I had dreamed of since I was a girl, had been hijacked. My father had turned it into his stage. And when he looked back at me as if expecting me to applaud, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I nodded. I clapped. Inside, I was burning. I remember my grandmother's hand brushing mine as she whispered, "Never let anyone steal your light, sweetheart." Not even him. Her words were the only anchor in that storm. That night, when the last guest had left and Michael had fallen asleep, I sat on the hotel bathroom floor in my wedding dress. Mascara streaked down my cheeks, my bouquet wilted in the corner. And I made myself a promise. No one will ever take my moment from me again. Not Dad, not anyone. It was the night I decided I would rebuild my life. On my own terms. Wanted to talk about Dad's engagement. At work, colleagues leaned over my cubicle. Your father's proposal went viral on someone's Instagram. Can you believe it? Yes, I could believe it, because I had lived it. Michael tried to comfort me, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. Marriage was supposed to start with joy, not damage control. Within a year, we were signing divorce papers. He wasn't cruel, just done. I think part of him always knew I was fighting ghosts he couldn't banish. So I started over, alone. I rented a one-bedroom in Chicago, cheap enough that the heating clanked all night, but expensive enough that I skipped dinners sometimes. I picked up side jobs, proofreading, freelance design, even waitressing on weekends, just to keep the lights on. Every night I came home exhausted, kicked off my shoes and sat cross-legged on the floor with my laptop. There was one woman who changed everything, Rachel Henderson, my boss at a small marketing firm. She was sharp, stylish, mid-40s, the kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it without raising her voice. "You've got an eye, Emily," she told me one night when I stayed late to redo a pitch deck. "Not everyone sees stories the way you do. Don't waste it." She started giving me harder projects, bigger accounts. She pushed me when I doubted myself. And slowly, painfully, I got better. Still, I kept my progress hidden. When Dad called, on the rare occasions I picked up, I told him I was getting by. When relatives asked, I laughed and said, "Oh, just small things." Let them believe I was scraping by. Let them think I was still that fragile girl in the hotel bathroom, because behind the scenes, something was building. My first big break came when a local boutique took a chance on one of my campaigns. Sales doubled. They told other business owners. Soon I was consulting full-time, then hiring help, then registering my own company, Eversight Media. The name felt like destiny, seeing what others couldn't. But success wasn't glamorous at first. It was 3 a.m. ramen cups, my fingers cramped from typing, my apartment littered with sticky notes. It was rejection after rejection until one client said yes. It was crying in the shower, whispering to myself, "Don't give up, Emily. Not now." And then came the wins that no one could take away. My first office space, tiny, but mine. My first employee, my first six-figure deal. I remember running my hand along the cool glass desk, thinking, this is mine. I built this, but I didn't post about it, didn't brag. I stayed quiet, because deep down, I wanted one moment, just one, where the reveal would be undeniable, where the people who had looked right through me would have no choice but to see. And one day, that moment came knocking. It was a Friday afternoon when I got the call, not from Dad, from Linda. Her voice was syrupy, too sweet to be real. "Emily, honey, we're in town for the weekend. We'd love to stop by and see you, maybe have dinner." My first instinct was to say no, to protect my peace. But something inside me, maybe that girl in the bathroom in her wedding dress, maybe the woman who had spent years quietly building, whispered, "Let them come." So I said yes. That evening, I waited in my office, not the starter space with peeling paint and flickering lights. No, this was the office that overlooked the Chicago River. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a sleek white desk, walls lined with modern art I'd collected during business trips. A place that radiated control, power, independence. When they walked in, I could see the expectation in their eyes. They thought they'd find me working some modest job, maybe sharing a cramped apartment. They thought they'd see poor Emily. Instead, their footsteps echoed across polished marble floors. Dad stopped mid-stride. Linda's mouth parted slightly as she scanned the space. The awards on the shelves, the gold lettering on the glass door that read, Eversight Media, founder and CEO, Emily Carter. I didn't rush to explain. I let the silence work. Let them drink in every detail they had never bothered to ask about. Dad cleared his throat. "Wow, Emily, this is something." "Something?" I smiled politely, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "It's mine." Linda's heels clicked as she walked toward the window. "This view, oh my God, how long have you been here?" 3 years, I said casually. "We outgrew the old office. Too many clients." Their eyes darted to the staff walking past. My team, confident, efficient, carrying laptops and reports, each one greeting me with a respectful, "Evening, Emily." Dad shoved his hands in his pockets. His voice was tight. "You never told us you had all this." I set my cup down. "You never asked." The weight of my words landed like a stone. His face flushed, and for once he didn't have a quick comeback. I gestured to the framed contract on the wall, a deal with one of the largest retail chains in the country. That's a 7-figure account. Last quarter alone, we doubled their online revenue. That's what we do here. That's what I do here. Linda blinked rapidly, still scanning the room like she couldn't decide whether to be impressed or intimidated. And then Dad said the line I'd been waiting for all along. "Emily, why didn't you tell us? We could have helped you." I almost laughed. Helped me? The same man who had stolen my wedding day and expected me to clap? The same man who had let me disappear into silence, never bothering to ask if I was okay? I leaned forward, folding my hands on the desk. My voice was calm but sharp. "Because I didn't need your help. I needed your respect. And when I didn't get it, I built a life where I didn't need your approval." The silence after that was deafening. Dad shifted in his seat, eyes darting anywhere but mine. Linda smoothed her dress, lips pressed tight. For the first time in years, I felt taller than him, stronger, untouchable. And it wasn't revenge, not exactly. It was the satisfaction of knowing I had created something that couldn't be overshadowed, hijacked, or stolen. Not by him, not by anyone. This was my moment, and no one else's. Dad finally broke the silence. His voice was softer now, almost unrecognizable from the man who once commanded every room. "Emily, I know I hurt you. I didn't realize it back then. I thought you'd be happy for me." Happy for him. On the day that was supposed to be mine. The old pain flickered in my chest, but I didn't let it take me under. I'd learned how to control it, how to turn it into steel. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs, the sound of my heels sharp against the marble. "You want me to be honest?" Dad nodded cautiously. "I'll never forget standing there with a smile frozen on my face while you proposed to Linda, while the guests clapped, while the photographer turned away from me. I'll never forget the way you looked at me, like my approval was owed to you. You didn't just embarrass me, Dad. You erased me. And I spent years making sure no one could ever erase me again." Linda shifted uncomfortably, her manicured nails tapping against her handbag. For the first time, she didn't look smug. She looked guilty. Dad's eyes glassed over. "Emily, I don't know how to fix this." I let the pause linger, then spoke carefully. "You don't fix it with words. You fix it with change. And if you want any place in my life, if you want to know me now, not just the version of me you imagined, then there are conditions." He swallowed. "Conditions?" "Yes," I said firmly. "First, you stop minimizing what happened. Don't call it a misunderstanding. Don't brush it off. Acknowledge it for what it was. Selfish and cruel." Dad lowered his gaze, shame flickering across his face. He nodded slowly. "Second, respect my boundaries. If I say no, if I need space, you don't push. You don't guilt me. You listen." Linda opened her mouth, maybe to defend him, but I raised a hand. My voice was calm but sharp enough to cut glass. "And third, you don't get to waltz back in and pretend we're a happy little family. If you want a relationship with me, it's going to be earned, piece by piece. And it starts with honesty. No more lies. No more performances." Silence stretched again, heavy but clarifying. For once, Dad didn't argue. He didn't try to make excuses. He just sat there, shoulders hunched, a man finally realizing the damage he had caused. Linda, to her credit, sighed softly. "Emily, I didn't understand how much that day hurt you. I should have. I'm sorry." I studied her face. Maybe she meant it, maybe she didn't. But I wasn't looking for perfection. I was looking for accountability. "I don't need grand apologies," I said. I need consistent action. Show me you're different. Show me you value me. Not as an accessory to your happiness, but as a person with my own life. My words hung in the air like a contract. Dad finally whispered, "I'll try. I promise I'll try." For the first time, I let myself believe he might mean it. Not because he said so, but because he looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Stripped of ego, stripped of bravado, just a man who had lost his daughter's trust and wanted it back. The power had shifted. The little girl forced to clap at her own erasure was gone. In her place stood a woman who could set the terms, and for once he had no choice but to accept them. The weeks after that meeting felt different, not perfect, just different. Dad started small, short calls, no pressure. Sometimes he just asked about my day and actually listened. Sometimes he admitted things I never thought I'd hear from him. I was jealous of the attention you got. I didn't know how to share the spotlight. Words that once would have shattered me now just felt like pieces of a puzzle finally snapping into place. Linda, too, softened. She sent handwritten notes instead of flashy gestures. Once she dropped off a box of pastries at my office with nothing but a post-it that said, "For your team. You're doing amazing things." Did it erase the past? Number? The wedding day will always be the scar underneath my skin. But scars don't disappear. They just remind us where we've been and how strong we became because of it. One evening, I sat alone in my apartment, a glass of red wine in my hand, looking at the Chicago skyline. On the shelf beside me was something I'd kept all these years, my grandmother's handkerchief, the one she pressed into my palm when she whispered, "Never let anyone steal your light, sweetheart." Not even him. I smiled, tracing the embroidered edges. She'd been right. My light had been stolen once, but I'd built it back. Brighter, stronger, untouchable. Now, I wasn't just Emily, the girl whose wedding had been hijacked. I was Emily Carter, founder, CEO, woman who stood on her own stage. And the best part? This time, when the applause came, it was mine. My father once used my wedding day to propose to his girlfriend and expected me to applaud. But today, the only person I clap for is myself.